This is Too Thick in all of his glory. I've played him for about 2 days or so, and my build is incredibly far from perfect. As you can see, I am currently level 75, but in this clip, I'm level 74, and I'm about to fight a boss that is level 106 in a Nightmare Dungeon, so 32 levels higher than me, and as you can see, there he goes. If you weren't convinced that this could be one of the single best builds in the entire game, hopefully that convinced you, but if not, here's another clip of that. But basically, I'm incredibly underleveled, and like I said, my build is very far from perfect, and I can just annihilate everything up to mobs 30 levels higher than me. And this doesn't just pertain to bosses, this also just pertains to just doing the Nightmare Dungeons in general. The build has so much unbelievable just raw damage that you can just nuke literally everything. But on top of that, the survivability is absolutely out of this world, and I really don't have all that much to say other than I genuinely think that this is possibly one of the best builds in the game, if not literally the best build in the game. I personally have not seen something that is as strong as this because, like I said, my character is fairly new. There's a lot of different things that I can do to optimize and make myself way better, and I'm absolutely just annihilating everything. I can't even imagine what this is going to be like at level 100, and the build just has everything you could ever really want. You just clear maps like an absolute madman. Your tornado just flies through and just nukes everything. You have some of the fastest movement speed that is possible on Druid, which is really nice so you don't feel like you're in a wheelchair anymore. You absolutely annihilate bosses, which we already have seen, and you have unbelievably ridiculous survivability to the point to where I'm able to tank mobs that are literally 30 levels higher than me, and I'm not even optimizing around survivability at this point. Towards the end of the video, I'll have some gameplay of a higher tier Nightmare Dungeon if you guys just want to see how the build will just function in general play. I think I've demonstrated enough how unbelievably powerful the build is, so let's just get into it. Real quickly, I want to mention that I'm going to be doing a subathon over on Twitch on Saturday, June 24th, so make sure to stop by. I'm going to be helping a ton of people doing Nightmare Dungeons with you guys, helping you guys clear your capstone dungeons, helping you guys level up your alt characters, and just a whole bunch of stuff. I'm also going to be trying out new builds, just having a good time streaming, so make sure to stop by if you want to support, help the stream, or if you just want to hang out and maybe get some help yourself. Also going to be doing a giveaway just because I feel like it. So for every 1,000 likes that this video gets, I'll be giving away a $20 Battle.net gift card so you guys can buy some cosmetics in the shop or something if you're interested. And I'll do that in about 2 weeks. So if this video gets 10,000 likes, I'll be giving away $200. Very nice. I'll probably do that in like 2 weeks or so. So if you're interested, make sure to subscribe, like the video, comment down below, and join my Discord server. All right, getting into the build. Before we get into everything, I kind of just want to talk about how the build functions and give you guys an understanding of how things work. Unfortunately, for this build to work, I'm just going to lay it to you guys straight. You need the Tempest Roar helmet. A lot of people recently have been saying that they're getting it way more often. Not sure if Blizzard did some back-end thing or if it's just copium, but you definitely need the helmet. Sorry for those of you guys that don't have it. I know you're already commenting, no, I need the helmet, but this pretty much makes the entire build function. But once you get this, boom, the build comes online. You don't really need much to make the build work. You just need the helmet. So don't worry about it. Once you get the helmet, you're chilling, okay? You have something to chase after now. In terms of how the build functions, basically the goal here is to stay in Grizzly Rage 24/7 for a number of different reasons. The main reason is that we get spirit cost reduction with this legendary here. So as you can see on my amulet, I get 66% spirit cost reduction. Then we just stack a bunch of cooldown reduction and other things so that we can essentially stay in our Grizzly Rage permanently. This pairs very nicely with the other legendary that increases the duration of Grizzly Rage. And every time that we get a crit while in Grizzly Rage, we increase our critical strike damage by 10%. As far as I'm aware, this does not have a cap. It probably does cap out on bosses and stuff like that when you're landing like hundreds of crits a second, but this is the reason why you nuke bosses instantly, because your crit damage scales out of control. I've seen my crit damage go up to about 650%. Haven't tested if it goes higher than that, but it doesn't really need to go higher than that for it to not be insane, right? So you pair these two together, you basically get infinite crit and spirit cost reduction, so you don't have to worry about spirit cost anymore. And then you pair this with Earthen Might in the skill tree, which basically gives your skills a chance to proc something that's going to restore all your spirit, but also cause all of your next attacks to be guaranteed crits. And because Tornado does so many hits simultaneously a second and you're spamming them constantly because of your spirit cost reduction and your extra attack speed, etc., your lucky hit chance is fairly decent. You proc Earthen Might very quickly, and then the second that you proc it, you just crit infinitely. And because Earthen Might has a higher chance to proc based on crits, you just crit back to back to back. So you just proc it over and over and over again, basically. We pair this with the legendary so we can actually use Earthen Might, and then we pair that with the helmet so that we can actually use our tornado as a werewolf, which our Grizzly Rage turns into a werewolf rather than a werebear. There's a lot of crap going on, I know. It's not really that convoluted once you understand it, but it seems when you first get into it, it's like storm skill, werewolf skill, werebear turns into werewolf. I'm a Earthen Might, earth skill, werewolf, nature magic. It's like, what is going on? Now that we have a decent understanding of how the build works fundamentally, let's talk about the skills that you want. So you want to go for Storm Strike. You couldn't alternatively go Wind Shear and some other stuff, but Storm Strike has a pretty good lucky hit chance, and if you ever run out of your vulnerable, it has pretty good vulnerable application, and it also has a chance to immobilize. I mainly use it for the 25% damage reduction. Tornado is fantastic because you throw it out, it just seeks out stuff and it just kills everything, and you can spam it. It scales very well with attack speed, which is why you can just nuke bosses instantly. And it also counts as a nature magic skill, which is very relevant for skill tree and a whole bunch of other things. And then we go for Blood Howl here. Blood Howl you have pretty much infinite uptime on. The reason for this is the 15% attack speed mainly, but it also counts as a defensive skill, so we can get some DR in the skill tree, and it also is going to heal us for a little bit. But we pretty much have permanent uptime because anytime you get a kill, it's going to reduce the cooldown on it, so that's very nice. Our next skill is Earthen Bulwark. You can use pretty much anything for this slot. A lot of people do different stuff. I like Earthen Bulwark because it's just a unstoppable, and we have permanent unstoppable with our Grizzly Rage when it's active, but sometimes there'll be some downtime if you get unlucky, or if you're just, traversing the map or whatever and you don't want to pop your ult. So what you can do is you just have Earthen Bulwark, or alternatively you could have Trample just to give you unstoppable, just so you can just have a button to press if you get CC'd, because that's literally the only way you're ever going to die, is if you accidentally get CC'd while you don't have your Grizzly Rage up. So that's why I do that. A lot of people use Cyclone Armor. It doesn't really matter, honestly. You could do Cyclone Armor. People do Wolves because the Wolves get hit instead of you. I mean, okay. Trample is nice for some movement, I guess, so feel free to do whatever you want, though. And then the next skill is Hurricane. Hurricane is fantastic. It counts as a nature magic, so it's going to help us with proccing some of our lucky hit oriented things, and because it ticks constantly, it has like an okay lucky hit if there's a ton of mobs near you. It does okay damage, and also enemies affected by Hurricane are going to deal less damage to you, so Hurricane is very nice. The more cooldown reduction that you have, you can get Hurricane to almost 100% uptime, which is kind of my plan with the build. Unfortunately, it's not active right now. I'm also using a legendary that gives me +2 ranks to shapeshifting skills with Hurricane, and my Tornado counts as a shapeshifting skill with all of our other stuff that we have going on. So we basically just get 2 ranks to Tornado for free by having Hurricane up, and the goal is to have this up 100% of the time. And of course we have Grizzly Rage, which does a ridiculous amount of things. First of all, it makes you unstoppable, so you can never get CC'd. You have permanent Fortify active pretty much all the time. You gain extra bonus damage, and the bonus damage increases per second while you're in the form. Kills that you get are going to extend how long it lasts, but that does cap out. And then obviously you have the massive spirit cost reduction through your legendary, and then you have the additional crit damage scaling constantly with the other legendary, which also increases the duration. I'm sorry to say it, this is getting nerfed, guys. Forgot to mention the entire skill tree, all of the legendaries, everything will be on the website, so make sure to check out the website to easily reference things. Let's get into the skill tree. Storm Strike I already mentioned. If your vulnerable application feels fine, you can take Fierce Storm Strike off and go into Wild so that you have a higher lucky hit chance with this, because it'll hit more targets, which means that you can have a better time proccing Earth and Might, okay? That is something definitely to keep in mind. Otherwise, everything is pretty simple. 1 point to Heart so that you can get 1 point into Abundance. I just had an extra point, doesn't matter. You mainly want 3 into Wild Impulse for damage. Max out your Tornado. I don't have rank 4 on Glove, Sag. And then you want the Raging Tornado, so you get the vulnerable application every once in a while. You don't really need the slow because you automatically apply slow with some other stuff. 3 points into Predatory for just extra crits, and then 3 into this thing for movement speed, which is pretty nice. We are not a Werebear, so Iron Fur does not work for us. And then I have Earthen Bulwark with the Unstoppable. Alternatively, you could do Debilitating Roar if you want, but it does not have an Unstoppable, but it does give you crazy damage reduction if you feel like you're dying, but you're a druid, you're invincible, you don't need that, right? Then we have 3 points into Vigilance for 15% DR after we use a defensive skill, and our Blood Howl is a defensive skill with a very low cooldown that we can spam pretty much permanently for 15% attack speed all the time, right? That's very nice there. And then 3 points into Nature's Reach for just extra damage, and then we have 3 points into Elemental Exposure to get just more uptime on Vulnerable. Our Tornado does already apply this, so once the build is like perfect, you might be able to take the points out of this, but you don't really need anything else in the tree, so it's fine to spend the points there. And then I actually put 3 into Endless Tempest because I want my Hurricane to last longer. This makes it go from 8 seconds to 9 seconds or so, 9.5. So I think it's pretty good, and the more cooldown reduction you get on Hurricane, the longer it will last. And Hurricane just does some passive damage, but it's really just nice for smoothing out the build, and I think it's a fantastic thing to do. But also you get the survivability with Hurricane, right? Enemies deal less damage to you, so ideally you'd have this up permanently. It's not a bad thing to do, and you don't have to build into it too much, so I'm a big fan of that. If you don't want to do Earthen Bulwark, you could definitely do Trample. I've just been doing Earthen because I like the Fortify, but I'm not even actually using that. I like the Barrier is what I meant to say. The Barrier is nice for the survivability, but Trample gives you the Unstoppable as well, so feel free to do that. Feel free to do the Wolves if you want, whatever. That last skill doesn't matter. You could literally take it off your bars if you feel like having the extra skill points. Then you want Neurotoxin so that anytime that you poison an enemy, they are slowed. And with Toxic Claws, crits with Werewolf skills, which is your Tornado, is going to deal percentage of their damage as poisoning damage, so you instantly apply slow anytime that you land a crit, which is why it's nice to have Hurricane the second that you go in, because you're instantly slowing, but you're going to pretty much apply slow instantly anyways. And then this is unbelievably strong. I don't know how this is in the skill tree. Give this to my rogue, please. Poisoned enemies take 60% multiplicative additional crit damage. We're scaling our crit damage unbelievably high with our legendary. This is 60% more. Usually you get 30% because you don't have it on the necklace, but there's nothing else good to get on the necklace, so this is what you want on the necklace. That is unbelievably strong, and you have it active all the time. Then we want 3 points into Defiance for just extra damage with our Nature Magic, which is our Tornado. 1 point to Circle of Life, so that we just get some extra healing. We don't really need this crap. Then we want 3 points into Resonance, so that our skills just deal extra damage. We want Grizzly Rage. Pretty basic stuff here. You want the Unstoppable, obviously, and you want the guaranteed constant Fortify, which is ridiculous. 8% Fortify per second. You have literally infinite Fortify. Kind of insane. Earthen Might is what we're using. A lot of people like Perfect Storm. Straight up, I just do not think that this is very good. Earthen Might gives you a chance to have infinite crits, like 100% crit chance, so you don't have to stack as much crit chance on your gear, and the proc rate on this is actually a lot higher than you think, because your Tornado does multiple ticks a second, and your Hurricane does multiple ticks a second. Sometimes if you're unlucky, you'll have a hard time proccing this, but if you're unlucky, you can just spam Sword Strike like 2 or 3 times. It has a pretty high lucky hit chance, and the second that you proc this, you get infinite crits, and then it's pretty much infinitely procced. I've tested going from Perfect Storm to Earthen Might, and my damage significantly falls off going for Perfect Storm. The only benefit to Storm is that it gives you more consistent spirit generation, but if the build is optimally set up, you don't need that. Your build is just not good enough if you have to rely on Perfect Storm for the spirit. Sorry, that's just how it is. 15% increased damage is simply not comparable to giving yourself the chance to do literally 100% crit, and if you saw the gameplay in the beginning, if you put on Perfect Storm, you will literally never be able to kill a boss that quickly, so would not recommend it. Feel free to try it out if your build is like super scuffed right now and the only thing you're worried about is spirit, but the second that you get your spirit problems sorted, which should be sorted pretty early on, you want to slap on Earthen Might. Earthen Might is also good because if you land crits, you restore 2 spirit instantly, so having higher crit chance inherently just means that you will get more spirit anyway, so I do not understand the reason for Perfect Storm. That's my tangent. Now let's talk about the rest of the stuff for the build. Getting into the legendaries and the gear, the entire list of everything you want will be on the website, but also a priority list for stats will be there, so definitely make sure to check that out. But let's get into the legendary. So the most important one, I have a bad roll of this, unfortunately. Well, not too bad a roll, I guess, is the Grizzly Rage. I think it's Dire Wolves or something. The Grizzly Rage one, this is the most important one because it gives you the spirit cost reduction. So you pretty much need to put this on an amulet. If your build is super scuffed and you don't have a good roll of this, it's not that bad to use it on a 2-hander. The reason we don't use a 2-hander is because a totem gives us a lot of cooldown reduction, so we have higher uptime on our Grizzly Rage. So ultimately you want this on a amulet, and then if it's max rolled, you get 75% spirit cost reduction, which is more than enough, but if it's on a 2-hander, it's almost 100%. So if your build sucks, put it on a 2-hander, right? And then the next most important thing is Rampaging Werebeast. The duration roll isn't that big of a deal. If you get a 1 roll, don't worry about it. You mainly care for the crit damage stacking because this stacks up almost infinitely, so that is really, really good. I'm sure it has a cap, but I don't know what it is, but it might not, honestly. The next legendary that is mandatory, these are the 3. Everything else is just supplemental and just makes it better, but these 3 you pretty much need if you want the build to work. The next one is obviously the Earthen Might key passive, also applies to your storm skills, so that is going to work for our Tornado. And then obviously you need the helmet, right, so that you can even use your storm skills. The rest of the legendaries, like I said, are pretty supplemental. You want increased damage based on your Fortify amount. We're pretty much permanently fortified because of the way Grizzly Rage works, so almost 40% extra damage all the time. Pretty insane. And then on the 1-hander, I went for crits with core skills, increase your attack speed. This is really nice, so we can just spam out more tornadoes. On the boots, you can either go for movement speed while unstoppable if you want more movement speed, or you can go for while Hurricane is active, you get 2 ranks to your shapeshifting skills. So while it's active, I basically have 2 extra ranks to Tornado, and my goal is to have this active all the time, so that's 2 extra ranks to my skill, which is quite powerful. On the pants or the chest, doesn't matter, you can go for Disobedience for the increased armor. Pretty much are going to be at armor cap with this build, so that's really good, and this ticks a lot because of our tornadoes applying poison and stuff. And then on the chest, I went for damage reduction while we are a werewolf. Alternatively, you can also go for might, where after you use a basic skill, you get more damage reduction. If you feel like you're dying, every once in a while, just slap out a storm strike, so you'd literally get 45% DR after pressing it for like 3 seconds. That's kind of insane, but this is basically 15% DR all the time if you have a good roll of it. Then on the gloves, you want Tornado seeks multiple targets. Tornado is kind of buns without this. I played with it at just a 1 for a long time, and it was not fun, and that is a way that the build could be significantly better, right? Those are things that you want to look out for. There's not really a whole lot of variance with the legendaries because you're locked into a lot of certain things, and some things are just simply better than others, right? When it comes to stats on your gear, again, priority list on the website. For the helmet, Tempest Roar, forehead, just loot the item, guys. It's not that hard. The chest piece, you want damage reduction while fortified, damage reduction, total armor, and then max HP or damage reduction from close. Or I think you can get, I'm not sure if you can get damage reduction while poisoned. Again, priority list and all the possible rolls will be on the website. On the gloves, these are very hard to get for me apparently. You want crit chance, attack speed, and then ranks of tornado. And the fourth one is a little bit up to preference. You can go for crit damage with werewolf skills, but because your crit damage is scaling so high with your grizzly rage, it's actually not going to be that good because heavily affected by diminishing returns. So I actually want storm skill cooldown reduction, which would work for our hurricane, so we can get closer to 100% uptime on this. You can get like 15% on your gloves. That would help out with hurricane being lower very, very nicely. And then you get the extra ranks more consistently, the slow, everything else. Then on the pants, you want damage reduction while fortified, damage reduction from close, total armor, and then I don't think you can get total armor in werewolf on your pants, so you would want instead damage reduction from poisoned or max HP, just get a crazy amount of DR. On your boots, mine are essentially perfect. You want spirit cost reduction, total armor while in werewolf, and movement speed. The movement speed is really good, definitely make sure to get that. Spirit cost reduction isn't that great because it's not really going to work that well because we have so much already on our amulet, so don't worry too much about it. I would really just try to get movement speed, and willpower is nice for damage. You could also get movement speed after killing an elite if you want to be a very fast boy. On a weapon, you want a one-handed axe because this has higher attack speed and it rolls damage to healthy. For some reason, axes just like don't drop on Druid. I don't know what's going on. I barely get one-handed axes, but I've literally looted more barbarian uniques than I have one-handed axes. Very hard to get, but you want it to roll with vulnerable damage. That's the most important thing. I've spent like 5 million gold trying to get that. After that, you want willpower. The reason crit damage isn't better than those is because, like I said, if your crit damage is going up to 500%, heavily affected by diminishing returns because the crit damage is additive. So you want to prioritize the vulnerable damage for the multi, the willpower for the multi, and then after that, you want to get crit damage with werewolf, and then something like damage with core skills or damage to slowed. On your totem, the reason you want the totem and the one-hander and not a two-hander is because the totem has cooldown reduction, and you need the cooldown reduction to have good uptime on Grizzly Rage. Mine's a 37-second CD, which could be a decent bit lower if my amulet wasn't sacred and if my totem rolls were better. So you want the totem for the double cooldown reduction. After that, you want spirit cost reduction, but that's not even that good. A lucky hit chance you can get, which actually does help with the build, so we can just raise our lucky hit. It's really not all that much. You can get crit chance on here, which is decent for just increasing the consistency of the build, or you can get like willpower, and that's okay too. Just at least get the cooldown reduction. My totem literally sucks, but I just want the CDR. When it comes to your rings, again, you want to prioritize vulnerable damage because that is just better than the crit. And then you want crit chance. The crit chance really isn't that great because when you're in Earthen Might, right, when you get a proc, everything crits. So the second that you get Earthen Might procced, all the crit chance on your gear just poof, it doesn't matter anymore. But in order to get Earthen Might procced, you have a higher chance if you do land crit. So it's not a bad thing to have crit on your gear, but I really am a fan of this ring here because it has vulnerable damage, damage to slow, damage to close, and crit chance. And I think at some point, the more crit damage you have, the less value it has, right? At some point, you'll want the additive damage instead of the crit damage, but additive crit damage in the form of crit damage with werewolf or just normal crit damage is still really, really strong. Just make sure to at the least get vulnerable damage and crit chance. The other stuff is kind of just whatever. On the amulet here, you don't have a ton of really good options. I actually hate my amulet, but the most important thing by far is getting ranks to Envenom passive and then getting cooldown reduction, because Envenom passive is unbelievably busted. You get 30% extra crit damage there, and if we are guaranteed critting, that's basically 30% damage. So basically absolutely must have. Outside of that, you want the cooldown reduction so that you get lower cooldown on your Grizzly Rage. That is pretty much mandatory. Outside of that, just whatever you can get. My amulet literally sucks because it's the only thing I could get with cooldown reduction and ranks to Envenom. It's very hard to get for some reason. So outside of that, maybe go for like damage reduction while fortified, movement speed, percentage with willpower. That stuff is all going to be very good for you. But beggars cannot be choosers, and this is what I have right now. Completely forgot that this class has spirit boons. So for the boons, you want wariness. Alternatively, if you aren't taking any damage ever, you can go for Gift of the Stag. And then you want an Eagle, Avian's Wrath for the 30% crit damage. And then you want Calamity to extend the duration on your Grizzly Rage. And then you want to bond with the Snake so that you get Masochistic, which is unbelievable amounts of healing. Anytime you get a crit, you heal. I think it does have an internal cooldown, but pretty much can't die with this thing. And And then Calm Before the Storm, where nature magic skills such as your tornado reduce the cooldown on your ultimate skill. When it comes to the Paragon board, I still need to optimize this. I'm still pretty low level, so I haven't looked too much into it, but I at least do know some things that you want to prioritize. I'll have boards on my website, so make sure to check that out for level 100 and leveling. I still need to make the level 100 one, but I will be updating it as time goes on and I figure stuff out. So the most important thing is in your first board, you want to be getting Exploit as soon as possible, just so you have a guaranteed vulnerable application. Your next board, you want to be Lust for Carnage. You want to immediately get this, so that anytime you get a crit, you restore Spirit. This is pretty much how we can keep our Spirit up, while also spamming our Tornado. So that's very nice. You get a whole bunch of extra damage and crit damage here, which is pretty decent. And then the first glyph that I put in is Earth and Sky. This is just because you can get it activated without it being leveled, and you can get 10% extra damage against crowd-controlled or vulnerable enemies, so that is quite nice. And then the next board, I went for Ancestral Guidance. After spending 75 Spirit, you deal 30% increased damage. If you're spamming your tornadoes, even if you have Spirit cost reduction, you do proc this. This is just 30% extra damage, which is fantastic. And then we have some Spirit on kill nodes here, which I really like. Bunch of core skill damage here. And then I went for Werewolf in this glyph because you can actually get a decent bit of willpower here for some extra additive damage. And when you start out, you don't have much additive damage, so it's nice to get the core skill damage and stuff. And then you just get damage reduction while you are in Werewolf. For the next board, I'm probably going to go Thunderstruck, or I don't remember the next one, but I'm going to go Thunderstruck or something else. And then I'm going to slap in a level 15 Spirit glyph because this is just a lot of extra damage. But again, just check the website. Alright, the video is quite long, so I'm probably going to edit a lot of this gameplay, but this is a tier 49 Blind Burrows. This place is a little painful because there's a lot of poison, and I'm pretty sure poison doesn't get affected by damage reduction, or at least it goes through it, or something, I don't know. Maybe I'm just making it up. Poison is just really, really powerful. But in terms of playing the build, pretty much you pop your ult, and then you spam Tornado, and everything dies. That's pretty much the gist. The main thing is if you feel like you're dying, use your basic skill every once in a while for the extra DR, and then you want to be making sure to just pop. Please don't pull me up. You want to make sure to pop your Hurricane on cooldown and your Blood Howl pretty much constantly. But as you can see, I'm doing level 103, and it's not that bad. Taking a lot of poison damage though. But as you can see right now, I ran out of my ult, so I'm kind of just going to wait. The more hits that you get, the more crits that you get, etc., the more lucky hits that you get, the more that you're going to have your uptime on your ult. And I'm missing a lot of cooldown reduction, right? So it could be better. You can still kill stuff out of your ult, but because the dungeon is way higher than me, I'm just trying to be a little bit safe here. But you can definitely kill stuff out of your ult and not really worry about it. You just don't have the Spirit cost reduction, and you don't have the extra damage, right? But the damage just gets better and better over time as you just keep spamming. But I mean, yeah, as you can see, tier 49 dungeon, the mobs are basically 30 levels higher than me. This is so funny, dude. I'm taking a lot of poison damage, but like, on my rogue, man, you go in here and you literally get one-shotted by everything. You take 1 point of poison tick and you're dead. As you can see, though, I am taking a lot of damage, but like, you can have way more survivability with this build. I'm not even worried about how the survivability is going to be when it's actually min-maxed. Jeez, man. Just nuked, dude. Just absolutely nuked. I'm not even worried about the survivability when the build is set up because I'm missing a lot of survivability currently. I'm considering using the unique chest. I didn't mention it, but I might actually use it in like an updated version of the build. But there's a unique chest that just gives you extra ranks. But you lose a lot of survivability if you get it. But depending on things, I might actually try it. But yeah, I mean, as you can see, my Earthen Might is just constantly procced in a moment like this because I'm just hitting everything. Look, I'm just standing in the Electric Lances. Tier 49 dungeon. Standing in the Electric Lances, getting hit by all this stuff. I'm also missing a lot of max HP, so you have so much damage reduction with this build that it actually is like really good to get a lot of max HP on pretty much all the pieces you can get it, because the only time you'll die is if something just does way too much damage to you, and no matter how much DR you have, like, you couldn't have fixed it really. So the way to fix it then is to just make sure it doesn't one-shot you, right? So as you can see, though, I kind of healed through everything. Dude, this is just insane, man. I don't even have the words. I'm not even going to pop my ult here. Pop my ult, kill everything, I guess. Forgot to use my Blood Howl. Yeah, keep in mind that when you use the Blood Howl, too, like, there's a lot of extra damage reduction that is, like, conditional, I guess. So, like, when you press the Blood Howl, you get 6%. When you use your basic skill, you get 25%. And then if you use the legendary where you use your basic skill, ooh, I'm actually taking damage here. Ooh. Move a little bit, make sure I get healed up. Oh, man. Alright, use my Bulwark, kind of peace out a little bit. That was a lot of damage. Yeah, I'm not worried too much about it because the build could be way better, and I don't know, you're not really supposed to be doing dungeons this much higher level than you. It's kind of just to show you that you can. but there's not really a benefit. I probably already have a lot of comments. Why are you even doing this dungeon, dude? You don't even get anything. But it's just kind of just to show you guys. I'm too dumb to do this dungeon, man. I couldn't find this last guy. All right, well, anyways, we'll kill him. Nice, and then we'll go do the boss, I guess. I am styling on him, dude. Look at me, holy. All right, I'll show you guys this little interim part. Suppressor mobs really make your life not very fun. Sometimes the tornadoes will just like not hit the mobs, and that's kind of rough, but there it was fine. Totem, please. Oh, I actually died. That's my actual death. I'll keep that in, okay? Actual death to poison because I wasn't spamming health pot. GG, man. Build sucks. I was just trying to pick up the totem, man. I just wanted the totem, dude. Why'd you guys have to kill me just because I wanted the totem? Oh my god, the electric lances. Pain. Artillery shrine hack? Am I allowed to use artillery shrine in the gameplay? I don't know. I'll wait out the artillery shrine so we can do the boss normally. Alrighty, the boss might be a little bit scary. The build is kind of hit or miss with bosses. I mean, most of the time you'll proc and you'll still own them, but sometimes you can just get unlucky and just not, like, proc instantly. But hopefully I proc with the gameplay, right? Basically, procking is, I mean, Earthen Might. Come back here, man. Alright, yeah, we procced pretty good. That wasn't too bad. You could proc, like, way quicker and just kill the boss. But, yeah, I didn't get too many procs and the boss kind of moves around, but that wasn't too bad. I can roll on a helmet, interesting. Yeah, that's pretty much it for the video. Thank you guys so much for watching. If you enjoyed, please be sure to drop a like, subscribe, blah, blah, blah. See you guys. Subathon on Saturday. Subathon on Saturday. Twitch Prime. Thank you.